All right. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Joel Rosen, and I'm here with my good buddy, Dr. John Thomas. And today we're going to give you a little bit of an intro on what we're going to be talking about in our free teleseminar tomorrow night at 8:30. And it's all about the X factor and everything you need to know in order to recover with an adrenal gland problem. Dr. John, how you doing tonight?
Great, Joel. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited that I got you on the call because I know you're an expert in the entire world of nutrigenomics and lecturing for a lot of different labs and nutritional companies. Give us a little bit of a background, John, on what you're doing now with all your talks and lectures.
Okay. Well, besides, in the trenches every day, you're working with patients who have a lot of chronic issues. I'm consulting and doing a lot of lectures for, like you said, a couple labs, Vibrant Wellness, Designs for Health, and a few others. And what's great about it, too, is getting out there and I'm educating doctors now and getting doctors up to speed on the whole nutrigenomics side of things and teaching them that there's more than just MTHFR and how they can relate that to chronic health issues.
Right, and that brings up a really good segue to the first point that we're going to be talking about in our workshop, and that's basically, I mentioned about 92% of the patients that you consult with have no idea that there's more than just MTHFR, let alone ancestry information on there. So tell me a little bit about some of the additional information and the over 250 cellular activity that information of nutrigenomic testing, whether it's 23andMe or AncestrySites.com, what other stuff that they can tell you about that specifically relates to adrenal gland problems.
Yeah, and what I see all the time is patients will come in and maybe they've been checked through LabCorp by their doctor for MTHFR, and maybe they've possibly, because of the advertising out there, done a ancestry test through Ancestry.com or 23andMe, and they really don't know the amount of valuable information that's embedded in those tests and the raw data that gives us insight into all these genes. And you talked about these hundreds and hundreds of biochemical activities that make these enzymes that make things and break these down. And what's vital is if you're working with somebody that's got adrenal fatigue and they've got an adrenal stress index and that's abnormal, there are enzymes that are making cortisol and breaking cortisol down, and these ancestry tests give us those enzymes. And so one may be genetically predisposed, those enzymes maybe working too fast or too slow, and that could be a big part of why they're not responding or healing to the treatment that they're doing.
Right. So a lot of people have these tests that are already done, and whether they're aware of it or not, and majority of their practitioners that order it are not necessarily using all the pieces of information to customize a program around to be able to help get to the causes of what's causing the energy production to be impacted, basically. Is that correct?
Exactly. And I always use the analogy of baking a gluten-free cake. If you're missing some of the ingredients or some of the pieces, that cake's just not going to be right. And this genetic component, being able to look at these enzymes, is so key to truly get an idea of how things are truly functioning and how things are truly responding with daily function, as well as how treatment is doing what it needs to do or may not be doing what it needs to be doing.
Right, and that's the thing too. I know you and I have talked about a lot of educated patients out there that understand what's going on with their genetic tests, and they do a lot of research on their own, and they'll call you and they say, hey, I got a COMT variant, I'm taking B6, I'm taking SAMI, and I'm just not feeling very good. And then you get back into questioning some of the upstream breakdown mechanical problems that are occurring. What other tests, well, we mentioned we're going to be talking about 4 different tests that we can get into that a lot of doctors aren't running, that will help highlight some of the weak links that are occurring on these genetic reports. So give me an example. I don't want to give away the secret, but give me an example of maybe one test that you can use to help you correlate what you're getting on this genetic test and how it relates to over these cellular activities that are necessary, and other tests that you can use for your repertoire to get more information.
Yeah, and like I said, there's 4 tests that we're going to cover that are pretty key in working with somebody that has true adrenal fatigue, and how we can correlate this genetic story to adrenal fatigue to be able to address it at a more in-depth level. There's one test that I really really like, and one thing I see all the time is patients will come in, they've been diagnosed with some adrenal fatigue issues, and they've ran, maybe their doctor, is checking cortisol levels in the blood, or maybe they've had a adrenal stress index where they're actually looking at their circadian rhythm of cortisol, and that's great, but there's missing pieces, and there's tests out there that are actually going to show us not only what that cortisol load is, and what that cortisol output is at different times of the day, but also how your body's metabolizing that cortisol. So it's one thing is that if if you have low cortisol levels and you're metabolizing it very, very rapid, I usually use the analogy that you're stopping at the gas station every single day, putting $1 in the gas tank, and then just burning through it real quickly, and you're doing that every single day,
Right.
and eventually that catches up with you, and just it's not an optimal way to do things. And
Yeah.
so there's tests that we can look at how efficient, how fast that you're burning through that cortisol, because that is vital in understanding how to truly heal adrenal fatigue.
Yeah, and you know what too, because I'm sure you're seeing it now with the plenty of reports that you're getting back, but you can actually make some false conclusions and false recommendations based on some of the incomplete values that you get for the adrenals. For example, I know the free cortisol levels that represent 1 to 3% of the total amount of cortisol that's produced in a given day. It's only shown in an ASI or an salivary index test, the free cortisol. So if they're really, really low on that, and you can give someone some kind of stimulant or some kind of prohormone or DHEA or pregnenolone, and you don't actually know the 100% of the total that's being produced is on the high end, you can do someone a real disservice. And I'm seeing that myself in real life, where they're low on one end but they're high on the other, or they may be high on the free cortisol and you don't want to give them anything, but their total metabolized cortisol is in the tank and it's nowhere. So you can get a lot more information. So okay, great. And then as far as the other components about epigenetics, so we talk about the genetics and how that relates to how well they inherently make energy, and if there's some weak links and deficiencies and lack of end product. But let's talk about how the epigenetic component, or every person's different, and so how does that factor into it?
Yeah, and although we talk about this genetic story and how vital it is to get some invaluable information, um, we know that the genetics is not the be all end all, and we know that the epigenetic story drives the genetics more so. So if somebody's got adrenal fatigue issues and they are genetically predisposed for some of these enzymes to maybe work a little bit slower, and then on top of that they have some type of epigenetic factor that's slowing them down even more, that's something that has to be addressed, or they're truly never going to heal and get stable. And so if somebody's got an Epstein-Barr virus issue, or they've got Lyme, or they've got a candida issue, or a metal burden, that's going to even slow down this genetic piece of the puzzle, and it's like another weight or another burden that's on there is playing into it.
Yeah, and that's true, and especially as it relates to adrenal fatigue, a lot of these people are giving hydrocortisone, steroids, and that's a huge tractor trailer spill in the middle of a freeway, like I like to say, where they have these genetic components where the enzymes are altered in their efficiency, and then on top of it, they're taking medications that are further slowing, even though they may be decreasing inflammation, they're further slowing down the end product and so how do you, just as a quick teaser, what do you do? What's your protocol for helping people that have some of these epigenetic components?
Well, we'll talk more about that tomorrow night on the
You're right.
webinar.
Yeah.
But I think first and foremost is you got to put on your detective cap, and you have to get in there and do some investigating. And sometimes you cannot just jump right in and think that you're going to support the adrenals and they're going to heal, because if some of these infectious or epigenetic factors are there, it's something that you've got to possibly address first or address in conjunction. And there's tests out there that are pretty reliable that can give us insight on what's going on, and we'll talk about that, as well as what are the factors, what do we look at, and what are those key components that really may inhibit somebody who suffers with adrenal fatigue from responding to care.
Cool, awesome. And then lastly, I think one of the things that you're really a specialist at is you don't want to just give someone supplements, and they always ask me, what's the best supplement for adrenal fatigue? What's the best adaptogen? Should I be taking some prohormones? What's the best thing for inflammation? Just give me sort of a cookbook recipe. And one of the things we're going to be talking about is living under the bell-shaped curve, coming with a systematic way of approaching it, and sometimes less is more, and pulsing nutrients. So what does it mean to say, living under the bell-shaped curve and pulsing nutrients to help someone who's dealing with an adrenal fatigue problem?
Yeah, and we'll really go into this in detail, because this is one of the biggest things that I see consulting with patients and patients in the office is, they're either taking something that they're reading on the internet that may be beneficial for them. Maybe their doctor has given them something that is the right approach, but how they're dosing it is not proper. And when we talk about living in the bell-shaped curve, is we want to live in this optimal state where we're feeling and functioning at 100%, 100% of the time. And really, when you're talking about some of these nutrients, they're very, very powerful. And just because something is maybe not working, it's maybe that it's being dosed improperly. And so we'll really get into like how to dose these things. And one of the biggest things I know we've talked about too, when we kind of relate to our patients, is sometimes when you're feeling really, really good, maybe you don't want to take anything, because you can overdo it, you can burn things out. And so when you're talking about supporting things from a genetic methylation standpoint, or you're supporting things from an adrenal fatigue standpoint, it's not a set and forget it scenario. It's not, here's a supplement, take 3 of these every single day, same dosage, same timing. You really have to learn how to increase and decrease dosages based on how you're feeling and functioning on any given day. And we'll go into what we talk about living under that bell-shaped curve on how to do that, so that these approaches can optimize function in the long run.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. I want to thank you for joining us. So what I'll do is, if we keep talking, we won't even need to have a seminar. So
Yeah.
let's make sure
we got a lot of good stuff to go over tomorrow. So.
Awesome. Okay, great. So thanks so much for doing this. And then tomorrow will be 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we'll probably have a replay. But the only way that they're going to be able to get that replay is they got to leave us their email so that we can send that to them. So I appreciate it, John, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow.
All right. See you tomorrow.
All right. Take care. Thanks so much. All right. Hello, everyone. This